Hey guys, welcome back. Today I'll be showing you how to send emails, and we're gonna use React emails, Resend, Tailwind for styling the emails. So stick around to learn a bunch of cool new things that you can use to build efficient emails. So without further ado, let's get started. So the first thing we need to do is install our dependencies. So the first one is React Email Tailwind. The second one is React Email components. The third one is Resend, obviously. And if you're following along and you didn't follow the series I have going on building an app, you would need to install Tailwind here, Prisma, and everything else you need to use. But we're gonna be focusing on emails, so we're gonna install these three. After these are installed, we're gonna go into our .server here, and we're gonna create a folder called mailing. And inside of here, we're gonna create resend.ts. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna import resend, surprise, surprise, from resend, if you believe it. And we're gonna initialize it by doing new resend, and then process.environment. So we're gonna do resend API key, and we're gonna copy this, and we're gonna go to our environment file, and we're gonna say resend API key is a z string, and we're gonna do minimum of 1. And now that I'm here, I'm actually gonna copy this and add it to all the other ones, and I'm gonna change this to be enum because it is an enum. It can be either production, development, or test. And we're gonna save this, and now we're gonna go back here, and now this is fully typed to a string. Another way to do this is doing const is equal to get server environment, and then taking it out of here, and then just doing this. It's really up to you how we're gonna do it, but these are the two options. I'm gonna leave this in for now. And we're just gonna create a generic helper called send email, because we don't really want to do any business logic here, because if you want to switch to something else from resend, you can do so later. I'm gonna add some things we're gonna need for later. So the first thing is email, so that's going to be a string, the subject that we're gonna send to the user, and the email templates. So this will be a React node. I'm gonna do React, and actually we're gonna change this to be something like this, React node, and we're gonna change this to be import type, and then delete this and save it. And then we're gonna do email subject and email template. So the reason this is complaining is because we haven't finished initializing the function, and we're gonna open up an empty body. We're gonna bring this back here. All right, and if I save this, all right, now it doesn't complain. So the next thing is we're gonna say response is equal to await resend emails send from no reply at. So this should be something specific to your use case. For mine, I'm gonna use Forge42 Dev. That's the name of our company. And then I'm gonna do to, and that's gonna be the email. The subject is gonna be the subject, if you believe it or not. And then the React is going to be email template. And then we're gonna return the error, if there is any. Response dot error dot message. And another thing we're gonna do here is export const, add email to newsletter. Email is a string, and then we're gonna do the same thing. So const response is await resend contacts. So this is where you add your new newsletter signups, create, and this takes a config. So this is going to be the email that you created and the audience ID, and this is again going to be extracted from the environment. We're gonna call it resend audience ID, and we're gonna add this to this array, and then we're gonna add it here. And because this doesn't exist yet, we're gonna create it right away. So go here, we're gonna do this, and we're just gonna replace this key, and now everything works as expected. And then we're gonna say return error.response.error. Or actually no, we're gonna return the response because this can have data, and we're gonna save. And this is everything that we need to send emails and add people to newsletters. If you want to switch to something else, you can replace it in this file and it should all still work and be tied to your business logic. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna build a template for our emails. And how we're gonna do that is we're gonna use React email components, and I'm gonna import everything that I'm gonna need. So it's gonna be the body, the font, the head, the HTML, the tailwind, and that's it. So from React email components. All right, so another thing we're gonna do is we're gonna import tailwind config from tailwind.config, and this doesn't exist yet, but we're gonna create it. And for now, let's just save this and let's create the tailwind config. So now that we have the tailwind config, I'm going to add a bunch of code in, and I'm just gonna explain what all of this does. So what this does is it creates a custom font that Tailwind is gonna use, and it converts everything from rem to pixels because email doesn't work well with rem. Some of them is supported, some of them don't. So this just assures that all of your emails looks the same across all the providers with Tailwind. And we're gonna save this. And now if I come back here, I'm going to do the following. So export const email template, and this is going to take children, and this is going to be a React node, but first of all I'm gonna do the arrow function, and this will be a React node, and we're gonna do the following. So we're gonna return HTML. Inside of here we're gonna return the head, and here we're gonna load our font. So because the font family inside of Tailwind is DM Sans, we're gonna specify it here as well. So the fallback font family is gonna be, I don't know, Verdana, and the web font is gonna be, I'll just copy it over as I have already prepared it from this URL. So this just loads the DM Sans font, and I'm gonna close this, and we're gonna import React from React just so this doesn't complain anymore. And now we do Tailwind. The config is going to be Tailwind config, and the body is going to be the body from React email components, and we're going to render the children. So this is our template, and what this is going to do, and this is complaining, and I have no idea why this is complaining. For now I'm just gonna ignore it, and then we're gonna save this. And this is our template. So this template is meant to be used for building emails. Now that we have this set up, let's actually build an email. So I'm gonna do newsletter.tsx. Here we want to build our newsletter. So I'm gonna import, I don't know, the button, the container, maybe an HR. Yeah, that's it for now. You can create your own React emails. It's really up to you. I just want to do a quick example, and we're gonna do newsletter email, and we're gonna accept two parameters. So the first one is the domain, and the second one is a token. And the domain is gonna be a string, and the token is gonna be a string as well. So the token is going to be our string that we're going to pass along so the user can come back to our page and then confirm his email. And we're gonna return an email template that we just created, and it requires children, so let's add that now. So the container. And now the cool thing is, because the email template already provides a Tailwind config, everything inside of here has access to Tailwind. And then let's do H1, I don't know, class name is gonna be text3xl, font bold, hello, and then let's do some P with a class name of large. I don't know, we are excited to have you sign up for our newsletter. To get started, click the link below. Alright, and then we're gonna do the following. So container, we're gonna do button, and we're gonna do subscribe, And then here we're gonna do the class name of font bold, py2, px4, text white, background something, let's do, I don't know, pink, whatever. And let's add it a little bit of rounding. And that's our button. And then we want the href tag here. So this will be a string. So this will be the domain. That's what I was talking about earlier. Newsletter. And then token is equal to token. Whoops. Token. All right. And let's add the HR here. And we're gonna import React as well here. So React. All right. And we're gonna save this. That's it. We have our email. When I say that's it, I mean for the email stuff. And now we actually need to create our newsletter models. So we're gonna do newsletter.server.tsx. So this is a tsx file because we're gonna import JSX emails here. And this will be pretty simple. So I'm gonna import create hash from node crypto. So I'm gonna prefix it with node here, so we know it's from node. We're gonna import Prisma from DB, and we're gonna need, and I'm actually gonna call it DB here. Okay, so we're gonna import everything we just created. So add email to newsletter, and send email from mailing/resend. And we're gonna import the newsletter email from mailing. All right, so let's quickly create our models. So upsert newsletter entry, and we're gonna do async email as a string, and we're gonna create a token now, and we're gonna do create hash SHA-256 update email digest hex. And we're gonna store this token in the newsletter. In the newsletter in the DB. So newsletter. Oh, we actually don't have the newsletter model, so let's create this first. So I'm gonna go to my schema and I'm gonna add the following. So the model is gonna be newsletter. The ID is gonna be a string ID. The default is I don't know, a UID, whatever, doesn't matter. For now, string test to be unique, timestamp default to now. This you can use. I'm not gonna use this in the tutorial, but the idea is that you check if if it's valid. For example, if it was sent like 2 years ago or yesterday or like 5 minutes ago. So that's up to you. And this is the token that we're gonna store. And we're gonna go. Okay, so this will save, and then we're gonna run npm run db generate. Or actually no, the script is npm run dbgen. So let's run that, and we generated it. So now if I go back to here, it should be available, right? Yeah, awesome. And then we're gonna do this upsert and where email. So I'm gonna write it out and explain what it does. Email token update. Alright, so what this does is it first creates a unique hash token, and then it tries to find the database entry where the email is equal to what we provide here. If it's found, it's gonna update the token. If the user tries to sign up with the same email multiple times, it's just gonna update the token. If that's what we want to do, if he forgets to activate it. And then we have the create here, and this will create a new entry in the database if the user doesn't exist. So we covered all our cases for creating and updating tokens, and we're gonna return the newsletter here. So that's our first function that we need. The second one is gonna be the get. So the get newsletter entry is equal to async token string. Const newsletter is equal to await database newsletter dot find unique where token. So basically find me the newsletter with this token and return it to the user. Or what we can actually do here is just do this. Bam. this doesn't have to be async anymore, and we've simplified it. So why I changed it is and removed the await is because when you return a promise, it's automatically typed as a promise of something. So this means that you can safely return this, and this just makes the code simpler. So delete newsletter entry is gonna be the same. So token string is, and how we can even simplify it more is by not doing that, but just doing this and saying here, so newsletter dot delete where token. All right, so these are our helper functions, and now we need to do the fun stuff. So confirm, or actually let's first do send confirmation email is equal to async email string. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna say, hey, upsert the newsletter entry, so email, then create the email template. So we're gonna do newsletter email, and the token is gonna be what we got from the newsletter here, so token, token, and the domain is gonna be, so because we set the domain resend to push42, that's what I'm gonna set it here as well. But this would basically be where to send the user in production. This, you can change this to be like process.environment, or actually let's do that. So what you can do here is say process.environment.node environment, or whatever you use, is equal to production. Then use this one. Otherwise use http localhost 3000, and that's gonna create your email template, and then we just close the JSX here. All right, next up, so this will either create or update an entry with the token. So this will create the email template, and this will be a JSX element. And now we're gonna do this. So const error is equal to await send email. If you remember earlier, we created this function resend. We're gonna give it the email. We're gonna do subject newsletter sign up and the email template. So if there's an error, return the error and the token is null. Otherwise, return the token as the newsletter token and the error as null. All right, so, and we're gonna import React at the top here and save this. All right, so what does this do? So when you send a confirmation email, it's going to create a temporary entry in the database and send the email with the newsletter sign up. And this will tell, so if you look at the email here, we're gonna say, hey, we're excited for your sign up, click the link below, and it's gonna send the user back to our local host or the production environment. And now what we need to do when the user comes back is actually confirm the email and sign him up on our service. So how we're gonna do that is we're gonna export a const called confirm newsletter, and this will accept a token that we're gonna extract from the URL, and we're gonna do const newsletter is equal to await get newsletter entry with the token. So what this will do is it will try to find the newsletter, and if it's not there, we're gonna return an error that's gonna say invalid token. Okay, if we're past that, we're gonna extract the email from the newsletter. Then we're gonna try to add the user to the newsletter with this email. If there's an error, we return that error. If not, we delete the newsletter entry with the token that we got, and we return the error as null. So what does this do? When the user lands on our page, we're going to get the token's newsletter entry. If it doesn't exist, it means it's an invalid token, or the user tried to use an arbitrary token. But if it does exist, we're gonna try to sign him up on our Resend newsletter, or whatever newsletter you use. And then if there's an error, we return it. If there's not an error, we delete the newsletter entry that was there temporarily, and then we return error as null. So this means that the function either returns error as a string, response, or null. Actually, we're gonna do error.message here. So this will return either string or null. Awesome. Alright, so this is all the logic that we need here. Now the last piece of the puzzle is actually creating the newsletter page. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to routes and we're gonna say newsletter.tsx. Or actually no, because this is not gonna have a component, it can be a TS file. And this one is pretty simple. So I'm gonna use remix forge to insert a loader here. And what I'm gonna do here is say const token is equal to new URL request. Oh wait, it needs to be all capital. New URL request dot URL dot search parameters dot get token. So because when we send the email, so if you look at the part of code that does that, so here the href points to newsletter token, and this is a search parameter, which means when we land on the newsletter route in the loader, we want to extract that token from the search parameters. If it's not there, it means it's an invalid URL, and we're gonna redirect the user to home. I mean, this should be handled differently, but for now this is good enough. You should show maybe a toast message here. We don't have toast notifications on this project, so I'm not gonna do that now, but you get the gist of it. And then we're gonna extract the error from the confirm newsletter, so token. So I need to import this. So this comes from this /server /model /newsletter. All right. So if there's an error, so I guess I'm just gonna redirect to home again, but you should handle this gracefully, and then you should redirect to home again. Alright, so what happens here is we're gonna get the token, we're gonna give it to the confirm newsletter, it's gonna check if it's valid. If it's not valid, it's gonna return an error. So if there's an error, we should handle it somehow, and otherwise return here. And we're gonna save this. And then the last thing that we would need to do is we would need to create a schema to validate this. So let's do that right now. So I'm gonna go to, alright, so the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a schemas folder. Inside of here I'm gonna do newsletter schema. I'm gonna call it newsletter.schema.ts. You can call it newsletter schema, it's whatever. Alright, so export const newsletter schema z.object email z.string dot email minimum of 1. I think that's enough for the schema. Newsletter info is .infer, type of newsletter schema. Close it, we're gonna save it. Alright, now that we have the schema, we're gonna go to the index route here, and we're gonna export our const. Actually, I'm just gonna generate it with remix forge, so insert remix action, and we wanna do the following. So, first of all, we're gonna install remix hook form and React hook form. Now that that's installed, we're gonna create a resolver here. So resolver is .resolver, and this comes from another package I need to install, and that's hook form resolvers. I'm gonna import the .resolver from hook form resolvers. We're gonna go here and call it, and we're gonna give it the newsletter schema. Alright, we have our resolver. So what we're gonna do in the action now is const errors, data, and received values is equal to await get form data. Actually, it's get validated form data, and this comes from remix hook form, and we pass it the request and the resolver. Awesome. So if errors, return JSON from remix.run node errors, and default values that are gonna be the received values. Otherwise, send confirmation, and this is gonna come from, and we need to type this as newsletter info, and this is gonna come from our server /models/newsletter. Oh, and we need to export it from the file actually, and this needs to be hook form resolver /zod. All right, and there we have it. We're sending this, and then we're gonna, again, this would be nice to notify the user. For now, we're gonna save this and just redirect back. And the last thing that we actually need to do is add a form on the client side. So I'm gonna do that now. So const is equal to use remix form, and we're gonna give it the newsletter info. And we're gonna do the following. So the mode is on submit, the resolver is the resolver we created, and then we need the handle submit, register, form state errors, and we're gonna create a form. So form from remix.run React. On submit, we're gonna give it the handle submit, and we're gonna open this up. So we're gonna need a single input. We're gonna register the email field here. We're gonna say placeholder is email, email.com, name is email, and that's it. And if there's an error, we're gonna say errors.email.message. All right, that's it. So because we're using remix hook form, if the server returns errors here, it will automatically populate here. So we have both the client and the server errors handled. And after this is good, it's going to send the confirmation email. So what this does is, as we remember already, it creates or updates a newsletter entry, creates the email template, sends it via resend, and that's it. And the user gets the email, he clicks the link, and he lands in the newsletter.ts in the routes, in the loader here. We extract the token, we try to confirm the newsletter. The newsletter confirmation here is basically, hey, get me the newsletter for this token. If it doesn't exist, it's an error. If it exists, try to add this newsletter sign up to resend, and then delete the temporary token. And this is the logic for signing up the user to the actual newsletter. And this is what we called to send the email. And if we go back here and save this, this is everything you need to do in order to create this newsletters functionality inside of Remix. The cool thing about this is, if you want to do this with another emailing provider, you would just need to replace the resend file and replace the send email and add email to newsletter functions. So if you want to plug something else like SendGrid or whatever, you can do so here. In the template here, if you want to use different fonts, you can. If you don't want to use Tailwind, you can just remove this. If you want to change the Tailwind config to use your custom colors, you can do so here. In the newsletter, you can create your own email with React, so whatever you type here, it's gonna render it. And if you want to test these newsletter emails, you can just create them and then send them to the client and then render them inside of an iframe and just see what you're building until you're done. And that's it. You've fully learned how to create a newsletter with Remix. You can now create more mailing letters, for example, if you wanted to do something else. So for example, I don't know, payment confirmation, you could just create a payment confirmation email. You still use the email template, and then you just fill it in with whatever you need. You use Tailwind, you use whatever you want, and you're good to go. All right, so that's it. I hope you enjoyed this one. I had a lot of time making it, and we actually use this approach on Forge 42. So let's check it out in action. So this is our web page. So if I go down here, or actually if I click newsletter, I'm gonna enter my business email. So I'm at forge42.dev, and I'm gonna click subscribe. So the only difference in the implementation is that here I use remix toast that I created in order to send emails. Sorry, not to send emails, but rather to redirect with success and error messages. So if I click subscribe, I'm gonna get the check your email notification, and as you can see, I got the email. It has the subscribe button here. It uses the same font. The text is a little bit different, but that doesn't matter. If I click subscribe, it takes me to our web page again. And as you can see, we got this notification. It says you have successfully subscribed to the newsletter, and that's it. We've successfully built a newsletter with Remix. We used Tailwind for styling, we used React for creating the emails themselves, and Resend for creating the newsletter signups and sending the emails. That's pretty much all there is to it. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments. If you liked the video, consider subscribing to the channel. I have a ongoing series called Remix Done Right, where I build a remix app from scratch. And that's about it. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one. Bye!